It was raining so hard, I had to put this umbrella up, but I ended up being able to finish Drink of Me by Jacquelyn Frank. This is definitely an adult book. No one under the age of 18 should be reading this book. Just saying. It's based in historical times. I took it as like a Roman type book because they talk about how they bathe in their baths, and they're described as big pools. So I took it as like a Roman pool. In the way they say they dress in old-timey clothes, like cloaks and stuff. But these two main characters are from, and it's like not really Earth, or it is, but it's just like in a different realm. And these two people are two different. This one is a sage, which in the very beginning, it kind of confused me because it starts out when they're like invading a jackal, which is like the enemy tribe, and they're about ready to like destroy them. So it begins with battle, so it gets really kind of confusing in the narration. It's not like from a narrator's point of view, it jumps from head to head to head, like you're inside different people's heads. So it kind of got really confusing at the beginning. However, oh, and it's still raining really hard. However, these two are from two different species. The way he describes himself, calls himself a sage or senge or something. S-A-N-G-E, but it's like French. And this is like the back of it. And she doesn't know what she is. She has amnesia for the first couple of chapters, and she's like locked in a cage at the jackal's house, and he ends up finding her and rescuing her, and ends up falling in love with her like basically immediately. Like basically it's like love at first sight. And she ends up becoming his queen. He's like the king of the sage, or the prime, and she ends up becoming prime. And they end up living happily ever after with a few bumps and bruises on the way. Her amnesia ends up leaving and coming on, and she ends up discovering she's from a mountain tribe. And the way that they describe her is like red hair, pale skin, and he has more of a darker, like Italian features. So they definitely know that they're not from the same tribe. But they all welcome her with open arms because that's their prime's like really in love with her, and like the prime and all of the pack men, because that's where it gets kind of confusing, because they call themselves a pack, like werewolves, but when the way to describe what they the way they describe themselves, they don't age, they could live for centuries, and they have fangs, and they drink blood. So I'm like, well, that's a vampire, but they're a pack like werewolves. That part gets kind of confusing. Anyway, so she has amnesia, so he names her Mystique, which I think is very, very pretty name. And then she ends up having a best friend who's like in love with him, his prime shadow, which is like basically his bodyguard. And there was like no way that he would ever leave his base, and he's completely like not aware that she has like a huge crush on him. So the prima, the queen, brings her on to be a like someone to divide in, like a person who tells her things. What's that called? Like someone who's just always there at her side. So she's gonna live at court, so that way her and his bodyguard is always going to be connected to each other. And it sounds like they are at the beginning of that and figuring out that journey. And I wish their journey was mentioned a little bit more in this, even though the main two characters I adored, but I just wanted a little bit more from that couple. And I wonder if any of her previous or next books might have him in it. And this is basically all her books, at least from when this was printed, because this is a pretty old book. And they end up finding out, the people that she's from ends up coming to the court to find her, and they didn't know at first that she was there. And when they do find her, she's like already acting like queen and saying like, and having a place here so they can't touch her. And then the guy, because she murdered like a prince of them, and so the lower king of her tribe wants like her dead, and so the prime shadow of his ends up killing him, and she ends up getting pregnant at the end, and they end up living happily ever after. So I've enjoyed this book. It only took me like a couple days to get through this book. Drink Me by Jacquelyn Frank. And I also remind parents, don't let children read this book. This is strictly an adult book. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.